podcast that takes you deep into the heart of Louisiana's history and current most chilling true crime stories. I'll be guiding you through the darkness of these crimes and all of those involved. Each week, we dig deep on those forgotten crimes, or those crimes that are currently happening, with the underlying legends that continue to haunt us. So lean in, listen, and get ready, because true crime is anything but ordinary. Stay with me as we unravel what happened in these mysteries. The pain of victims never truly fades. It echoes throughout generations. Today we will be talking about the case, alleged rapist getting custody. This is episode number 40. If this is your first time listening, hi, my name is Sarah Soudier, and I'm your host for Criminalist Behavior Podcast. I want to thank you for listening to the show, and I really hope you enjoy it. So, trigger warning, in case you couldn't tell by the title, this episode may contain content of a graphic nature, including descriptions of physical and sexual violence against adults, children, and animals. Listener discretion is advised. So, Crysta Abelseth, at age 16, went out with some friends to a bar in Hammond, Louisiana in the year 2005, and she did this by using a fake ID. She was dancing and hanging around with all her girlfriends, and she ran into a guy named John Barnes. Now, John Barnes seemed like a very respectful gentleman, and they were really enjoying each other's company, dancing on the floor, just, having drinks, before the night came to an end. And it's 2:00, and the bar started closing, and it's time for everybody to go their separate ways. John offered to take Crysta home once the night came to an end and the bar started closing. Crysta recounted that instead of John driving her home, as he stated that he would, he actually had plans of his own, and Crysta stated that before that night, she never knew of anyone named John Barnes, never met him before a day in her life. And she stated, and this is a direct quote, "Instead of bringing me home, he brought me to his house. Once inside, he forced himself on me and raped me on his living room couch." And it is said that Crysta woke up the very next morning naked, lying on John Barnes' bathroom floor. Y'all do recall that Crysta was the young age of 16, right? Well, due to John Barnes' alcohol-induced decisions that night, whether Crysta allegedly consented in intercourse or not, she walked away from that night being pregnant. So 2 factors here, y'all. Factor 1, Crysta was drinking that night, and this makes her under the influence and therefore still not able to legally give consent. Factor number 2, she is the age of 16 and not of the legal age to consent in sexual intercourse in the state of Louisiana. So Crysta, throughout this whole ordeal, kept this very eventful night to herself, did not let any of her family and friends know what had happened, and she thought that it was best to keep it that way. She thought that her parents would find out and she would get in trouble because she was at a bar drinking, using a fake ID, and she just didn't want to have to deal with that. So instead, everyone in her family and her friends assumed that Crysta was pregnant for her then boyfriend, and she just let them run with that. So she stated the exact following: "Everyone assumed the pregnancy was from my boyfriend James, and at that time I'll let them believe that." So Crysta was dating a boy named James Threaten, and she went on to give birth to a baby girl, and she started to rebuild her life from this crazy night. Crysta had a healthy baby girl, and everything was fine until John Barnes caught wind in about 2011 that he may actually be a father to a baby girl. Now, this was 5 years after Crysta had this baby. And according to Crysta, she stated the following: "When my daughter was 5 years old, he found out about her. And once he found out about her, he pursued custody and wanted to take her away from me. And they granted him 50-50 custody, despite the fact that the child was the cause of a rape incident. So a DNA test was part of the court documents and proceedings, and lo and behold, it proved that with 99.97% accuracy, John Barnes was Crysta's daughter's father. Barnes was 30 years old, and Crysta was only age 16 at the time of this conception. The act was illegal at the time, even if it was consensual. Crysta maintains it was never consensual, and she stated that Barnes received 50-50 custody at that time. How freaking wild is that, y'all? How do you give a rapist custody of a child? How? So, let's fast forward a few years, and in 2015, Crysta formally filed criminal charges against John Barnes. She filed the charges with the Tangipahoa Sheriff's Office for simple rape, detailing everything that was done to her on that night. And she stated that she waited to file the police report because she was unaware that she could still file one. She didn't know the law. She said that she reported the rape to police in July 2015 after she met with a trauma counselor who informed her that she was still within her right to pursue charges against John Barnes. And Crysta stated the following: I thought if I didn't do it the next day, there was nothing I could do about it. I went to a trauma counselor, and he said, no, you have 30 years after you turn 18 to be able to file charges. So, in case y'all didn't realize, this is not a rare case. 3 out of 4 sexual assaults are not reported to the police. And according to RAINN, for every 1,000 instances of rape, only 13 are referred to prosecutors. And only 7 lead to a felony conviction. Did y'all hear that, right? 1,000 cases. 13 are referred to prosecutors. And only 7 actually get a felony conviction. 8,000, y'all. That's fucking insane. So, carnal knowledge of a juvenile, which is also known as statutory rape, is a criminal offense in Louisiana that can be charged as either a felony or a misdemeanor. Louisiana law defines a crime as consensual sexual intercourse between an individual who is age 17 or older and another individual between the ages of 13 through 16. And that determining factor for whether the crime is a misdemeanor or a felony is the age difference between those that are involved. So the law doesn't care if 2 individuals were in a romantic relationship and plan to get married or attend high school together. The age of consent in Louisiana is 17 years old, meaning no one under the age of 17 can legally consent to sexual intercourse. It is for this reason why the charges for carnal knowledge of a juvenile are taken very seriously and acquire legal representation. And a misdemeanor carnal knowledge of a juvenile occurs when one individual who is 17 years old or older has consensual sexual intercourse with the individual who is 13 years of age or older but younger than 17. For it to be a misdemeanor, the offender must be at least 2 years older but no more than 4 years older than the victim. And that crime is punishable up to 6 months in jail and or $1,000 in fines. So it could be both. So, biggest takeaway from that is it could be a felony if the individual is between the ages of 13 and 16 and it's like a more than 4-year age difference, or it could be a misdemeanor if the individual is 13 and older but only 2 years. Okay, that's the difference. 4 years or 2 years. Any intercourse, no matter how slight, can result in one facing charges for carnal knowledge of a juvenile. So, and again, with felony carnal knowledge of a juvenile in the state of Louisiana, it can occur in one of 3 ways. The first way is being when an individual is 17 or older and they have consensual sexual intercourse with another individual who is 13 years or older, but younger than 17. And the offender is at least 4 years older than the victim. And an individual who commits misdemeanor criminal knowledge of a juvenile a second or subsequent time can also face felony charges. So if you get 2 misdemeanors, it can bump up to a felony. And that is the felony criminal knowledge of a juvenile is punishable up to 10 years imprisoned and or $5,000 in fines. So it could be both as well. A felony conviction requires a sex offender registration for the offender, and the offense is non-expungible. So they cannot clear this off this person's record. So the age of consent, like I previously stated, in the state of Louisiana is age 17. But there are certain exceptions that may not explicably keep minors from having intimate relationships with adults and or vice versa. So, mistaking the child's age. So, you didn't know that a child was a child, that they lied about their age and you thought that they were older. That is not an acceptable defense for that person's actions in a sexual manner towards this child. And from 2015 until now, nothing actually happened with her report. So Crysta said that the Tangipahoa Sheriff's Office stated that this case was still open. It was never assigned to a detective and nothing was ever investigated. And a search of John Barnes on the web shows that he owns a branding company called Gumbo Digital Branding, and it's located in Ponchatoula, Louisiana, and it actually shows the Ponchatoula Police Department as one of his clients. So Gumbo is not the commonly spelled gumbo, it's more of the Cajun way, so it's not Gumbo, it is Gumbeaux Digital Branding. And Gumbo Digital Branding is according to their website, I pulled this off as a description of their company. It is a comprehensive approach to digital marketing that focuses on creating a unique and memorable brand identity online. It encompasses various strategies and techniques aimed at enhancing brand visibility, engagement, and loyalty among those audiences that are targeted. And Gumbo Digital Branding offers businesses a comprehensive framework for building and enhancing their brand presence in the digital world. And they focus on key components as brand identity, content strategy, social media management, SEO, UX designs, analytics, and they actually can create businesses meaningful connections with their audience as well as driving engagements. So he had a good little company, right? And I say had, but I mean, it's still happening, all right? Gumbo Digital Branding is still a thing. So John Barnes' LinkedIn page lists him as the owner of the Gumbo Digital Branding in Ponchatoula, Louisiana. And according to everything that I was able to look up, his profile was actually deactivated as the news about this case spread like wildfire. His website remained active until June 15, 2022, but some pages, including a link to request a free quote, generate an error code. So like if you go to look up Gumbo Digital Branding website, like gumbodigitalbranding.com, you pull it up and it'll do an error code. And it says, please excuse us while we're rebuilding our website. So in case you're realizing that's exactly what's happening. So a yellow place listing for John Barnes' company appeared to contain its original content with a few additions. So there was this ad or this listing placed on the web pretending to be Gumbo Digital Branding Company, but Lord, was it slander. So it stated the following: Gumbo Digital, child rapist certified. The listing stays along with a phone number, website, and address. And in it, the description states, specializing in small to medium businesses, digital branding, and marketing through responsive web design, SMM, SEO. Owned by John Barnes, a child rapist. The page says under the About section. And under the awards section, the listing says, being a child rapist, John Barnes. So, yes, that is chaotic in its finest. Chaotic slander. Whoever did that posting, well, we all know it ain't John Barnes. He ain't gonna slander his name and business like that. But whoever did that, man. So paternity and child support, right? The petition for paternity was initiated by Crysta in 2011, and the judge wrote in a filing, there was a suit that demanded DNA samples from both James and Barnes, because you remember Crysta was with her boyfriend and led everyone to believe that James was the father of her baby, even though she was raped and got pregnant by John Barnes. So they both were tested, and James was actually incarcerated at that time the DNA test was ordered. James actually signed the child's birth certificate, and the young girl initially had his last name and called him Dad. And after the test revealed that John Barnes was actually the father by 99.97%, both parents voluntarily agreed to joint custody in October 2011 without intervention from the court, and that neither would pay child support. So they came to a mutual understanding, which, first off, let's step back and think. Crysta had to develop a relationship with her child's father. And in normal circumstances, I would say, hell yeah, you do. But this man raped her, and this child is the result of that rape. Now, most people, which I don't believe in, but again, I'll keep my opinions to myself at this present time, but most people would either get an abortion or give this child up for adoption because they don't want to look their child who was conceived from rape in the eye and just reimagining that event happening over and over and over on a daily timestamp in their lives. So she was a woman about this, kept this baby, regardless of how this baby was conceived, and just went about living her life when John came back just crashing and crashing and crashing. Like, you know, you're at a beach and like you're trying to stand up and these waves are just like humongous. And like you're trying to stand up and you get knocked down and then you try to get back up and then bam, bam, bam. Yeah, this is what John was doing to Crysta. So she was drowning with just dealing with him. So she warmed up again to do this 50-50 thing and not even ask for child support or anything. They had this understanding. Now, that began to change when some things started happening. So, court records show that John actually admitted he was the biological father of the child. Well, he couldn't deny that, right? Because the paternity test proved that he was the father with near certainty. And the age difference was very high. So that's like 14 years age difference. Because John Barnes, at the time of this incident that the child was conceived, he was 30 and Crysta, like I said, was 16. That's a 14-year age difference. So Miss Abelseth requested that John Barnes was named as the father of the minor child, aka the child that was conceived due to the rape, and they consistently consented to share custody since the onset of this whole ordeal. But John Barnes grew frustrated that Crysta continued to encourage a relationship between her ex, who was now labeled as a con, James Threaten, and the child, taking the girl to see him in prison. And John Barnes stated the following: "She was undermining my relationship with my daughter, teaching my daughter that she has two dads. A judge later ruled that the child could have no contact with James Threaten because he was not her biological father, nor was Crysta in a relationship with him, and the fact that he is incarcerated." I mean, Judge, kudos to you. So another point of contention that John Barnes raised was Crysta was like a revolving door. She apparently had men coming and going from her home, and he repeatedly asked her to be held in contempt for allowing these various men to sleep over when their daughter was present in violation of their custody agreement. So I can understand that if that's actually happening, but this is another tactic that John Barnes was trying to use to control Crysta's life. I don't agree that a child should have this revolving door of men coming in and out of her life. It just confuses them, and it's not stability for that matter. But, I mean, to each his own. So, John Barnes also stated within court documents the following quote: "Her mother goes through men like a revolving door. Men were coming in and out of my child's life. She had 3 husbands in 6 years, and it wasn't healthy." Now, Crysta apparently flashed out at him and said that she was not married 3 times within 6 years. She was not a revolving door. She did not have these men coming and going from her home. And in June 2012, Crysta sued for child support, and a judge ruled that John Barnes would pay her $450 a month. So, in retaliation against that, John Barnes sued for sole custody of Crysta and his daughter in May of 2015, accusing Crysta of continuing to foster a relationship between her daughter and James Threaten and having men stay overnight at the home when the daughter was present. He also asked for a fresh accounting of their child support obligations. So, where does this case stand, right? So the sheriff's office actually admitted that they dropped the ball on this case. The Tangipahoa Sheriff's Office stated in a statement that the initial complaint never made it through the proper channels within the department to be assigned to a detective to be investigated. Therefore, their department absolutely dropped the ball, and they must simply own their mistake. The Tangipahoa Sheriff's Office has reviewed and identified the breakdown in operations relating to the initial complaint that was filed by Crysta, and since that time, there was enhancements to the department procedures that have been implemented and measures put in place to ensure that reports from public never go overlooked or mishandled again. Now, that all sounds fine and dandy, but we all know that there's a lot of people who are not organized, and there's a lot of shady shit that goes within law enforcement officers. I really hope for this particular sheriff's office that is actually the case. So, those cases, especially alleging criminal acts against the minors in the community, they said that they need to actually really focus on that. The department stated that Crysta did not follow up on the matter until April of 2015, which Crysta says that's not true. Crysta stated the following: "I was calling and leaving messages and wasn't getting any responses. Back when I filed the charges of rape against John Barnes, I was told that it would be handled with care and that they would take the proper steps." However, Crysta also claims that she still can't get any answers involving this case. The case has now been turned over to the local DA's office, and the Sheriff's Department stated in a statement that no charges have actually been filed yet against John Barnes, or Crysta for that matter. So, Tangipahoa Parish Sheriff Daniel Edwards released a statement stating that he had turned over the case to the office of DA Scott Perilou of the 21st Judicial District in Louisiana. Crysta apparently did not follow up on her complaint according to their actions until April 2022, and a team of investigators that was then assigned, but given the complex nature of their findings, the case was turned over to the DA's office, which will decide whether or not to pursue those charges. And there is a person who is advocating for Crysta, and she works for the Save Live 35 Foundation, and her name is Stacey Trish. She stepped in this ordeal about 8 months ago after Crysta reached out for help. Stacey Trish called the whole ordeal a horror story, and said the following: "If anybody else would have raped a 16-year-old child, that person would have been in prison. He is well connected. He's threatened Crysta multiple times, and he says he has connections in the justice system. So he threatened Crysta that she better be careful, and that he could take their daughter away anytime he wants to." Now, Crysta didn't believe that could actually happen until that actually happened, y'all. Initially, both had to share custody of the child, who is actually 17 years old as of today, 2024. And Crysta stated the following: "It's been consuming my life. It has just drained me emotionally, financially. I'm just exhausted. My quality of life has been minimal because of having to co-parent with this man who raped me and having to see him and speak with him. Anytime she has an event, he's there. It's just very difficult." So the outside law enforcement agency got involved and started reviewing this case. And according to the U.S. Department of Justice, if there was ever a time for the USA Justice Department to take a criminal case away from corrupt local cops and DAs, this is the one, is what was stated. District Attorney Scott Perilou is reviewing the case, and Raphael with the Metropolitan Crime Commission stated he was requesting an outside law enforcement agency to look at the case. He stated, Raphael, the Metropolitan Crime Commissioner, he said, "I've been doing this a long time. I've never seen anything like this. This is confounding and deeply disturbing. And that is why I'm making a referral to another agency today, for them to take a fresh look at it to see if it rises to the level of an actionable felony. And the agency that I refer it to would have the authority to seek an arrest warrant and arrest any culpable individuals in this case." So, we're going to hop on over to year 2016. And Judge Cash was assigned to this case, and he actually ordered Crysta to pay John Barnes $117 a month in child support, making that retroactive to 2015. So she had to go back a year, and so she owed back child support, for that matter. And Crysta told him in an interview that the judge issued a child support decision based on her potential earnings, reasoning that she had a master's degree and she should be able to pull in $80,000 a year. Not taking into consideration that what she actually was bringing home, just because she earned a master's degree, she should be able to take home this amount of money. And according to financial records, Crysta was only making about $35,000 working part-time as a waitress at the Ponchatoula Seafood and Steak House. And John Barnes was making about $102,000 running his, branding company and working for an oil company. According to John Barnes, he stated in the court filings, she was earning money under the table and trying to avoid paying child support, which is why the judge made that ruling, who added that she refused to pay for 18 months. That's when the state began garnishing her wages. See, such an asshole, how he just responds to this. Like, accusing her of trying to hide money under the table. So the fuck what? Even if she was. You fucking raped her. You raped her. And now you're suing her for that child? The hell is wrong with you? So, the whole ordeal in this whole custody battle was the fact that there was a secret cell phone that had sexually explicit TikTok posts. Now, we all know teenagers, and this world is just corrupt. I know. My daughter in this whole TikTok organization thing, no, I'm monitoring your page, boo. I am so monitoring everything that you're doing, and you better not be doing nothing shady. And I don't even like the fact that she has this, but I am on it. I know her username, I know her password. It's good. Anyways, in December 2020, John Barnes moved for expanded custody, accusing Crysta of allowing their daughter, who was 14 years old at that time, to make out with her then 17-year-old boyfriend in her room, unsupervised. So, the pot calling the kettle black. That's what we're doing. Crysta was 16 when she got raped and pregnant by John Barnes. But the daughter's 14, and she was making out with a boy in her bedroom, supposedly, allegedly, who was 17 years old. That's 3 years older than her. He also accused Crysta of providing their daughter with a second cell phone with not restricted access to social media when she already had one that had parental controls that he himself has given her. So, a little bit of shady, but, I get the concern, but where the fuck were you 16 years ago? Anyways. A few weeks later, Crysta contacted the Department of Child and Family Services to report that John Barnes had allegedly pulled their child's hair and ear, and that the young girl was afraid to go back to his house. And she moved to limit the custody of John Barnes. So Judge Cash presided over a hearing in May 2021. Yes, the same judge that ordered her to pay $117 a month child support, which centered on the secret cell phone the daughter had allegedly been using to upload various sexual explicit TikTok posts and inappropriate photos, which apparently included a picture of herself with a boy in a bed and with sexually explicit messages. The judge denied that each parent's request for expanded custody would be ordered, but ordered them to obtain the phone's passcode and review the phone's contents. 5 months later, according to the judge, Crysta still had not turned over the child's phone and claimed that it had been wiped and stolen. I don't know about all that. The judge held her in contempt for letting the child have a third phone and banned the child from having another device and ordered both parents to have logins for the young girl's social media accounts. He also ordered Crysta to pay Barnes $500 in legal fees. So, $117 a month in child support, plus the years of back child support. And now she's got to pay $500 in legal fees. Okay, I do get the justification that she did not do what she was ordered to do with the whole cell phone and all that good stuff. Gave her another cell phone. Yeah, she ain't wrong. I get it. But again, we're not looking at the main factor here. So, John Barnes was accused of raping their daughter, and he lost custody. The allegations reached the extremes back in 2022, February 25th to be exact. This is when Crysta filed for an emergency restraining order against John Barnes in favor of herself and her daughter, which was automatically granted, alleging that he had drugged and sexually assaulted their child 2 nights in a row while in his home. The daughter was taken to Children's Hospital in New Orleans, where she was evaluated, and the doctor did confirm that there is evidence of forced entry congruent with sexual assault. She continued in a handwritten petition for protection, and criminal charges for sexual assault are pending that blood work and testing results as this is happening. In the petition for the restraining order, Crysta also recounted that John Barnes allegedly sexually assaulted her whenever she was 16, and the baby, who has now been allegedly assaulted by the father 2 nights in a row, happened again. So, a screenshot of court documents showed Crysta's handwritten application for a restraining order filed February 25th, 2022, accusing John Barnes of sexually assaulting their daughter, and a hearing officer determined that there was no medical evidence to support that allegation. Now, if you do remember, I just said that Children's Hospital did state that she had the remarks of being sexually assaulted, but on the bottom of this whole court document that, the handwritten restraining order that Crysta filed, she stated the following: "My daughter was conceived as a product of the defendant, John P. Barnes, raping me, Crysta Abelseth, when I was a minor child of 16 years old. I suspect drugs were used by him to sedate me as I was unable to move while he raped me. Now it is alleged that he has committed the same heinous crime on our 15-year-old daughter." Now, this is the first time that Judge Cash says Crysta ever mentioned that John Barnes has raped her since the custody proceedings ever took place. John Barnes says he was devastated by the accusations that he did not see or speak to his daughter for a whole month after this happened. And a hearing officer ruled on March 18th that all criminal charges are not being accepted. Medical evidence does not support the allegations within the petition. So Crysta, who was home with the flu, voluntarily dismissed the restraining order at the hearing through her attorney. So, I don't even know. Like, why would you dismiss the restraining order? I mean, I get that you're sick home with the flu, but you're dismissing the restraining order, accusing this man of raping y'all daughter 2 times in a row, and stating that she is a product of rape. Okay? So, as you can imagine, the courts are like, wait, what the hell is happening? What's going on with this woman? Like, this is some serious shit you're talking. So, John Barnes gets temporary custody towards their daughter. 3 days later, he filed for temporary sole custody, alleging that Crysta gave their daughter a phone in violation of that court order, made up false accusations of sexual abuse to gain custody, and had permitted their child to have sex with an 18-year-old. That is how they had evidence of forced entry into their daughter's body. So it was alleged that Crysta was allowing her daughter to have sex with her boyfriend, not the fact that John Barnes raped his daughter, okay? That same day, Judge Cash granted John Barnes' request for sole custody pending the outcome of an emergency hearing. In the meantime, the jurors gave Crysta supervised visits on alternating Saturdays. So Crysta lost custody of her daughter. She was only able to see her supervised every other Saturday. So, in awarding temporary custody to John Barnes, Judge Jeffrey Cash, who has handled this case, said that in a court document that was released, Crysta failed to show the court that her daughter has suffered physical or sexual abuse by the father and that she had consistently consented to shared custody since the onset of this whole case. The judge said that Crysta never alleged any sexual abuse involving the father and the minor child until John Barnes complained in court about the daughter's alleged cell phone use last year. The judge stated that there was evidence supporting the need for immediate protection of the child because Crysta had failed to comply with the court order to allow John Barnes to review the daughter's cell phone contents. Judge Cass said he found sufficient evidence to show that the minor would suffer certain harm unless the court issued temporary custody order. So the judge, John Cash, was stating that the daughter was going to suffer harm being in the care of Crysta. So Crysta then filed a motion to terminate John Barnes' parental rights based on the alleged child being conceived through felony rape. And that hearing was set to be held on July 15th of that year. The court proceedings have taken a toll on Crysta and her family, and since then she recently remarried and she has a 17-month-old little boy. She stated the following: "It's been a strain, definitely, on my family now because this consumes my life. I am shook to my core. It has taken a turn that is unfathomable." John Barnes says he adores his daughter and only wants what is best for her, and that means having rules and boundaries. He called her very intelligent and said that she wants to become a nurse, and although she's still in high school, she plans to take college courses next year. John Barnes stated the following: "She has a very promising future. I want to preserve that and keep her on the right track like any loving parent would want for their child." And this year, there was cases happening, but in 2015, that's whenever he was granted that custody. And according to every record that we try to find, those court records are under seal, hidden from the public view. Judge Jeffrey Cash is the Louisiana judge who crime victim advocates say ordered a rape victim to pay the child support to the man who impregnated her as a teenager and granted full custody to the accused rapist. Judge Jeffrey Cash is a Republican candidate for the family court, and he became a judge to honor his family legacy. The father of Jeffrey was an honorable judge, and he wanted to follow in his father's footsteps. Stacey Trish from that Save Live Foundation works for a nonprofit, Save Lives. She helps Crysta through this whole ordeal, which should have never allowed her perpetrator to get custody of their child. The Hammond-based nonprofit Save Live 35 is collecting donations for Crysta, and you can make a donation for Crysta at https://save live liv 35foundation.org/donate/. I will link that in the show notes as well, so just in case you couldn't catch that, savelive35foundation.org/donate/. So when Crysta said, when Stacey found out that Crysta was a rape victim and the rapist could potentially get full custody, that's when she decided to step in and said something had to be done. She founded the organization Save Live 35 after the death of her nephew. She wrote, "Due to the devastation of losing my nephew, Save Live 35 Foundation was formed in his honor with a mission to inspire others and encourage new beginnings through faith, hope, and love." Charlie was her nephew, and he was issued his high school football jersey jersey number 35 weeks before he died. He never got to wear his jersey, and he was so proud of it, and included the number 35 and Save Live 35 as it's his way of wearing it in his honor. Since Stacy's nephew's death, she devoted all of her energy to spreading awareness and speaking at schools, camps, churches, seminars, and shelters in hopes of saving a child's life. There is no greater pain than a family having to bury their child, and she wants to do everything in her power to try and prevent another family from having to bear the burden of loss because their child was unaware of dangers of inhalants and or other drugs. So she says that she holds on to the Bible verse Jeremiah 29:11. It was the last scripture she taught her nephew the week before he died. And it says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future." So that is the whole ordeal. Stacy is trying to help Crysta gain back her rights and fight this, because this rapist should not have custody of this child. Things took a dramatic turn when the judge granted John Barnes full custody, and it happened after Crysta gave her a cell phone. And she was also ordered to pay him child support. And Stacy said she's been forced to pay her perpetrator child support, forced to pay her rapist child support and legal fees, and give up custody of the child that's a product of rape. It makes no sense. And according to an investigative unit who discussed this case with the Louisiana Foundation Against Sexual Assault, LaFasa, their lawyer said not only is this egregious, but they've never seen a case like this. And according to Sean Cassidy of LaFasa, he stated the following: "It seems pretty straightforward that not only did a crime take place, but as a result of the crime, this person should not have custody of the child." Now, Crysta said for years she tried to go about this the right way, through the courts. But having her daughter taken away weeks ago over allegations she gave her a cell phone left her with lack of confidence that she'll ever get a fair hold with the justice system, because she was unable to find that within the last 16 years. Sean Cassidy, an attorney and advocate with the Louisiana Foundation Against Sexual Assault, said the case should be moot because it is against Louisiana law for an abuser to have custody of a child that was a product of the abuse. And Sean Cassidy stated also the following: "This seems like it's just ignoring a fundamental fact that would lead anybody to conclude rather quickly that in the very least a statutory rape has occurred. That should affect any conclusions in a custody matter. It should be the determinative factor to guide a custody determination." Instead, though, Sean Cassidy said those facts seem to either not have been presented correctly or was just completely not forward in the case. It was just ignored. According to court documents, the court was aware of the age difference between the two when the child was conceived. John was 30, Crysta was 16. That was pretty much all you needed to know, according to John Cassidy. I mean, case should be closed. Statutory rape, bam, right? Louisiana law states that if a child is born of rape, the abuser shall not have visitation or any form of contact with, which obviously would include custody. Crysta said she was initially unaware of her rights and believed she had to go along with the custody case, which obviously got worse over the years. She said that the fact that she was the victim of rape and that it had previously came up in the trial because of her age and Barnes' age, she became pregnant. And attorney for LaFasa, Sean, said again the court could end up ruling in Crysta's favor after a full hearing, but it's baffling that why it hasn't actually happened already. Crysta says she believes the court completely dropped the ball and mishandled the case, and it's just been very unfair. There should never have been any rights to the child in the first place. She should have never gotten this far. That's what Crysta stated. Crysta, who is now 32, publicly accused the father of her child, John Barnes, who is now 46, of raping her when she was just 16 and he was 30 years old during this custody battle. A Louisiana judge now took the child away from both of them, saying neither of them was credible and each has contributed to her trauma. So yes, regardless of how this child was conceived, the parents going back and forth like this, alleged rape against Crysta and the child being the product of that rape, not alone to mention, according to Crysta, because I couldn't find any documentation that the child stated this, but according to Crysta, that John Barnes allegedly raped their daughter 2 nights in a row, but yet failed to do so, had a restraining order, but then canceled that restraining order because it's just a little But you gotta think, like, what the hell that child's going through. Like, she grew up knowing her father and her mother, and now all of this shit just got hasty, and now she's got to live through this. Like, how embarrassing, how traumatizing this is for this child. So they both have been denied to have custody, and John Barnes has been denied contact with his daughter in the latest development of this case, and their teenage daughter was conceived due to rape. The encounter would constitute as rape regardless of consent under Louisiana law, and that's what the case was trying to be proved as. The case made headlines when Crysta went public to say that she had lost custody and that she was being forced to pay child support to her rapist. John Barnes was given full custody of their child, and there was court proceedings that happened a decade worth of time, but like I said, they both lost custody. The Tangipahoa County Judge Jeffrey Cash ruled that the girl would remain placed with guardians approved by both of the parents, both John and Crysta. John Barnes was barred from initiating contact or visitation with his daughter. Crysta was ordered to take parenting classes and allowed visitation at the least for the first weekend of the month, and possibly with more frequency if agreed by the child and the guardians. So Crysta's daughter says that she wants to see her mom, and as long as Crysta's following the court's orders, then there's possibility that she could have more visitation. And Judge Cash attempted to summarize the complicated history of the case dating back to the child's birth in 2006, when a man other than Mr. Barnes was named as the father on the birth certificate. You remember James Threaten? Yeah, because he was allegedly assumed to be the father, but, you know, the DNA proved that he wasn't. And Crysta never formally acknowledged the child was not for James Threaten until this paternity test. And James was incarcerated when the girl was 4, and it was at this time when John Barnes caught wind that, you know, Crysta was possibly pregnant, well, had a baby for him. So, in 2011, that relationship was breaking down, and in June 2012, this is when Crysta filed for more child support, and, you know, long and behold, court case after court case, accusation after accusation, allegedly actions taking place and then dropped. And so the judge stated that he was good within his decision of ordering that both parents not be awarded custody of this child because of both of their behaviors. And the judge stated the following: in this case, the evidence and circumstances have profoundly proven that the custody to either parent, joint or sole, will be substantially harmful to the child. So he was saying that if either Crysta or John had sole custody, the child wouldn't be within good hands. And it says, none of the issues presented were the result of a sudden or isolated incident, but they were actually a product of the parent dysfunction and continuous emotional and supervisory neglect of the child over the course of a decade. Furthermore, the court did not find either parent to be credible, and he described the girl at the center of the case as an articulate and bright lady. And amongst all of this happening between both of her parents, Crysta and John's child managed to maintain good grades, and she was involved in extracurricular activities despite the chronic trauma that she had to go experiencing throughout the years. And he later added, according to the pleadings filed, the minor child desires to remain in the custody of her guardians. And she said that she wants to improve her relationship with her mother, but does not want to continue her relationship with her father. The judge did not legally terminate John Barnes' parental rights, but it was definitely granted because of the Louisiana felony rape law. The court recognizes that John Barnes has acknowledged his commission of felony carnal knowledge of a juvenile. The court did not find a compelling evidence of and hearing direct testimony refuting Crysta's claim of simple or third-degree rape, including a testimony of a non-party eyewitness to the actual sexual encounter. There is simply no authority, jurisprudential or otherwise, defending felony rape or the application of felony carnal knowledge of a juvenile, and this court will not create a law by a judicial fiat where the legislature has failed to do so. So, Judge Cash agreed to insulate Crysta from ongoing custodial interactions with John Barnes. The mother, who recently remarried, aka Crysta remarried, and now her child is about 19 months old at home. And she says she's mentally, emotionally, and financially exhausted all of the time to the point it affected her quality of life, work, home, and the rest of her family. It just puts a strain on everything. Crysta also stated that she felt let down by the justice system, which left her rape allegations uninvestigated or untouched for a very long time. This is the only time I've ever had to deal with basically law enforcement at all, Crysta stated, and it's not a very good experience for her. Crysta explained, every time I have to let her go back and forth to her home without her, it is just very hard. She says she does get emotional just like anyone else would, and she feels like she's a strong person and she is fighting, and she said that she's going to continue to fight for her daughter until her last breath. So please share and keep this mother and daughter in your prayers. You are tremendously brave. This is what her aunt and uncle stated. They wrote this on the fun page that Trish has for her. It says, please share and keep this mother and daughter in your prayers. You are tremendously brave. Your aunt and uncle are extremely proud of you for continuing to fight for your daughter's well-being. So even families like backing up Crysta. Now, I'm not saying Crysta's a saint, but at the same time, she should have not had to deal with the child support allegations or facing this man every single day, having to co-parent with her rapist. Now, for more information about anyone, if you come into any sexual abuse, they have the RAINN's National Sexual Abuse Hotline at 1-800-656-4673. Again, that's going to be linked in the show notes. Also, if you get a part of a domestic violence incident, which this could have been resulted in domestic violence, like if she was drugged and then raped, that domestic violence hotline is 1-800-799-7233. And if you are a victim and you need resources, contact the VictimConnect Resource Center at 1-855-484-2846. If you enjoyed our show, please rate and review us on any of your podcast apps. Leave a message, comment, rate and review us on social media. I mean, it really helps the show. Also, you could become a Patreon. You could visit our website at www.criminalistbehavior-louisianatruecrimepodcast.com. I know that's a whole mouthful. All of this information is going to be listed in show notes as previously stated. We also have a link tree. You can click on that and it literally gives you everywhere you can listen to our podcast. But iHeartRadio, Spotify, Amazon, you name it, it's on there. So, again, check out our website. Become a Patreon. We also have other memberships available. You want to be a guest on the show? Have any suggestions on cases you would like me to do? I mean, hey, I'm all for it. So, yes, I look forward to hearing from you. So, if you enjoyed the show, again, please rate and review us. And be sure to come back for our next case. And I would keep that one a secret. But that's going to come out next week. And until then, this is your host, Sarah Studier. Don't forget to like, share, comment, follow, and subscribe to Criminalist Behavior, a Louisiana true crime podcast. Thank y'all for listening, and I hope y'all enjoy y'all day. Bye!